Hi, I'm Camella from A Twist of Yarn, and welcome to Becoming a Better Knitter. Today we're going to demystify the common misunderstanding of pilling. It's something that every time we go to create a garment, we hear, we don't want yarn that pills. Well, I'm going to break it to you. Any natural fiber that is going to be used in a garment is going to pill, even if it says anti-pilling. Now, with that being said, there are definitely different degrees of pilling. Some might be just very minor. Some fibers pill horrifically. So we're going to talk about that today and explain why that happens and how to avoid and making some wise choices if you really don't like the pilling. So when using fibers where you are creating a looser fabric, such as knitting or crocheting, the fibers don't interlock like they do when they're woven or if they're super tiny itty bitty stitches from machine manufacturing. So here I have a sample of a sweater. Now different fibers will pill differently. So in this particular sweater, it's an alpaca blend. So this one, I'm just gonna pull off some of these fibers. It's not going to damage the fibers at all. It's just that a lot of the loose little itty bits of fiber slowly just work their way to the top and out, and they get snagged on things. Because alpaca is a smooth fiber, it has a tendency to kind of slip out a little bit more. And when I say slip out, we're talking minutely. That's what creates this pilly fabric. Here's one. This is a superwash merino. And a superwash merino will do the same thing, but much finer and smaller pills. Sometimes we can just pull them off, but that's another form of pilling. This particular one is a cashmere with a merino blend. And we'll take a look at the cashmere fiber shortly. Now here again, because this is a very loose, open stitch, again, the cashmere is going to ball a little bit. In this particular case, I usually just sort of pull off the big ones. There are gadgets out there that you can use that are very good. And usually for my sweaters, I will glean them every couple of wears just to keep them fresh and pretty. Here's just a little demonstration of how different fibers will react. So in this particular case, this long staple is from the Shetland sheep, so Shetland wool. This is Blueface Leicester, this is merino, and this is cashmere. So we can see how long the Shetland wool is. So in terms of pilling, this is going to pill much less because all of those fibers are going to be wrapped around all of these stitches and interlocking with all of the stitches. So there's going to be much less pilling in a Shetland. The same thing with a Blueface Leicester. And this one has so much crimp. I love this wool. But again, because it's a long fiber, the chances of pilling are really reduced with these types of fibers. Merino does have a tendency to be a little bit more of a pillar because you can see the difference in length in which the fibers are caught when you're knitting or crocheting. With this merino fiber, merino does have a tendency to pill more because it's shorter. So what happens when we have our little stitches, there's the shorter fibers that are exposed. So as they're exposing, even me just doing that happens to ruffle up those little fibers, and then eventually they're just going to create little balls. So the merino is more susceptible to pilling. Finally, we have cashmere, and cashmere is literally just fluff. So cashmere does have a tendency to pill, especially when the stitches are a little bit larger. To avoid pilling with cashmere, you do want to have smaller stitches, depending on what it's paired with as well in terms of wool. If it's paired with, say, a Blueface Leicester, you're going to have less pilling because these fibers are going to bind with the cashmere, catching them to create a more confluent web of case.
Is confluent a word?
I was trying to think of to create a more secure web of fiber as they are interlocking. Cotton is very, very similar to cashmere because it's so fluffy. Even cotton can pill depending on how loose the fabric or how tight the twist is. And how tight the twist is the tighter it is, the more it grabs, and then there's just less room for friction in order for that to come apart. So I know you're all gonna ask, what about synthetics? Synthetic fibers are all made in a different way than when we have our natural plant and animal fibers. They're made by machine, they're long staple lengths. So when you go to knit or crochet those fibers with synthetic fibers in there, there's much more resistance to any fibers being shed when there is friction, like say under the arms or in the front where we happen to get the pilling the most. So that's why those manufacturers can actually say that they have an anti-pilling. They're fairly accurate. It's just a choice of whether you choose to wear the synthetics and if that's what you have to wear, or if you do like the more natural fibers. So pilling just happens to be one of those things that happens naturally, and it is something that we have to do just like changing the oil in our car. It's inevitable one way or the other. It's just a matter of how we treat the fabrics afterwards, and more often than not, those fabrics will love you for the rest of your life as long as we take care of them. And like I said earlier, there are different little gadgets out there where you can definitely use for the pilling and taking them off and keeping your garments beautiful. So enjoy. If you have any comments or suggestions or questions, please don't hesitate to make a comment below. Thanks for joining us. Yay!